Hello, welcome to the latest episode of NG Meets. This week's guest is Joshua Osoro Pickering, Community Engagement and Participation Officer at Nottingham Castles Trust. And I'm sure you're all aware, obviously, that the castle is undergoing quite a lot of work at the moment. Biggest, refurbishment in a long time at the castle, and it's currently closed, which obviously arguably has been great timing for it, given everything that's happened, and we do talk about that in the show. No doubt, I'm sure you've all seen, you all saw the castle when it was covered in scaffolding and the like. It was like a very strange sight to see when you looked up from the outskirts of the city. I know I often saw it on Castle Marina Bridge, and it was very weird. But there's some huge stuff going on there, and we talk about what they've got coming up. We talk about the plans for the castle reopening in February next year. That there's still the plans, the work's still going ahead, ongoing. So, but obviously there will be considerations to be taken depending on where the guidelines and situation finds ourselves in that time. We also had a chat about the work that Josh has been doing during this time in terms of still being able to get activities and reaching out to people, and things they've been doing there during the virus. Josh only started in the role in January, so it's been quite an interesting and unexpected experience for him. So we talked about some of the stuff they've got going on there, the plans going forward, the importance of the castle engaging the community, and some of the work. Josh talks about some of the work he did prior to starting at the castle, and his work involved in local communities and schools, and his importance of making sure all people get to experience the castle and its history. And so there's fascinating stuff to talk about there. And we also as well had a chat about the football, both being lower league fans. I'm a Notts fan, he's a Mansfield fan. We had a chat about what it's been like not having football, and how much we're looking forward to that coming back. Obviously a little bit about the impact that's had on people. I think it's underestimated, but it was a fascinating chat. It's really exciting thinking about what we're going to see from the castle. Such a focal point that's maybe not been celebrated in the way it should. So it's an exciting times moving forward. It's going to be interesting. So hopefully you'll enjoy this episode. As I've got all episodes available at ngdigital.podbean.com, including recent episodes with Notts Trans Hub, in Nottingham Refugee Week, My House Your House Shareware Clothing, and a whole host of other groups to speak to. Next week's episode will be with Jasbinder Bilan, who is a award-winning author. So that'll be a fascinating chat. We'll be talking about her work and her new book that's due out. So tune into that one next week. And check out, give us a share, spread the word. We've got plenty of shows we're working on. Let us know what you think, give us a review, and don't forget you can check us out. Facebook is at facebook.com/ngdigital, and Twitter at ngdigitaluk. So many thanks, enjoy this episode. This is NG Meets Josh Osoro Pickering. Hello, welcome to another episode of NG Meets, and today I'm here with Josh Osoro Pickering, who is the Community Engagement and Participation Officer at Nottingham Castles Trust. So first off, Josh, thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, cheers for having me. Yeah, the job title's a bit of a mouthful. I don't always get it right myself, but yeah.
No worries. I guess that just encompasses how much it covers, I suppose.
Not even, actually. Yeah, it covers like a few parts of the many things that we do. But yeah.
one thing I didn't realise until I was sort of looking into this and researching for today was I didn't realise how recently you came into this role. I think was it sort of only the beginning of this year that you took on that role. Is that correct?
Yeah. I joined in January.
So
yeah, it's not long at all, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So you came in while obviously the castle was already closed for the ongoing works. But I guess, I mean, obviously you couldn't have expected exactly what the first 6 months would bring you in this new job.
No. Yeah, it's been complete, obviously unprecedented for everybody, but for me it's been especially unusual because I was absolutely delighted to get this job. This is like a dream role for me, really, as a history buff, but also someone with a passion for community work and for this city, and for this to be like this being the new great, like, big project in the city that's going to transform tourism and culture and the way we tell our history and take pride in telling our history. This was, for me, was perfect. And it also followed a long period for me of kind of just doing little jobs here and there and working in communities and working for organizations, but never having the security of like a long-term contracted salary, really. I can't remember when I had one of those before this. I've worked abroad and worked in this city, but always doing kind of shorter jobs, doing 0-hour contracts, temp work, all kinds of different things that don't really offer much security. And then coming into this job, absolutely delighted to get it in January. And then 6 weeks, I think, into it, is when we when we had the lockdown. I actually went off work a week before that, with symptoms, before the official lockdown, before schools closed or anything like that. So yeah, it was into the unknown. But yeah, we found quickly that a lot of the work that we could still do during this period was possible from home. So I've been working full time from home throughout it, and strangely, I think I found myself more productive because of just having the flexibility and the time to get things done. Not to say it's been easy. We've got kids here as well, and my partner works full time as well. So it's been unusual and been interesting trying to adapt to different things that occurred during the lockdown. But in terms of the job, yeah, it was from the high of getting the job and then learning all about the project and getting really deep into the kind of mountains of work that we have to do, which I do with pleasure. It's all really interesting stuff, and I really like it. But then having this kind of spanner thrown into the works and then adapting to that. But yeah, it's been fun, kind of the challenge of adapting to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that it's about as big a challenge as you can get in this kind of role. And it was, as I've said, has come up to quite a lot in conversations I've had with people. It was so fast. Although I think, like you said, you had symptoms prior to it, and I think we all knew a lockdown was coming. But even so, it was very much like, right, as of tomorrow, everything stops. So there wasn't really. It's not like you had a sort of a 4-week time to plan and integrate new systems or things like that. So it was
no, but we've got we were kind of learning this. I was, at least me and one other colleague who started at the same time as me. We're kind of learning the systems anyway. For the first time, we were still very much, and we still are in the learning period of knowing everything that's going on the project. But yeah, we're also lucky to have a really good team, really good CEO, Sarah Blair Manning, who gave us the time to kind of work things out and was very good about our health being a priority and taking care when we didn't know what it was. I guess we still don't really know what it is, do we? But yeah, that's still the message that we get from above, is that we take care of ourselves, and that's helped us as well to focus when we need to on the work, feeling secured in in knowing that we're supported and that the work's going to get done anyway. And it's a good place to work.
Well, yeah, and I think it's easy to underestimate how important that is, isn't it? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that don't have that that feeling that their best interests are necessarily being taken into consideration. So it's so important to know that, you know, you've got that support coming down the chain.
I think you're going to see that with the post-COVID period, and I've got friends who I've spoken to who work for organisations that aren't as supportive or aren't as flexible. Won't name names, but yeah, there are organisations out there who don't who haven't prioritised their workforce, and I think you're going to see that in the post-COVID world when those organisations get left behind and people aren't going to want to work for them, and it'll become known. People will know who those companies are.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you say, this is still a long process ahead. And I think that one of the things that I think is the most unnerving of it is the open-endedness of it. You know, although we're seeing certain things easing, and you know, everyone I think has got viewpoints on whether it's the right time for that or not, what should be happening. But even so, there's still at the moment you can't focus. There's not even a real date you can say, right, target this date and then things can move forward. We don't know if there's going to be a second wave. Seems likely. And I mean, you know, we don't know situation regarding treatments, vaccines, and anything like that. So it's very difficult, isn't it, when you don't have an end sort of in sight. It's kind of like going down a tunnel and not knowing how long that tunnel's until you come out into the sun again, so to speak.
Yeah, and there'll be those who adapt best or have flexible enough structures, I suppose, or adopt them, who survive it or who do best out of it. Really, obviously, yeah, there are some organisations that are set up better for that kind of thing than others. Yeah. Some are more rigid, but yeah, I think I appreciate being in an organisation where not only is it more flexible, I think naturally, but also that it comes down from those above who want it to work in that way, and they appreciate us and they know what the right way about it is. I think. Yeah. That said, though, we are working to time frames, to deadlines, and at the end of the day, we are at the mercy of this thing and when it changes or what comes next, and we don't know. So we can plan for different eventualities and we can think about what might happen, but yeah, we don't really know, and anything could happen. We hope to open in February 2021. All the work's on time. We're still sticking to that date despite probably slight delays to the construction work, but it's not to the point where it's going to change the date of our opening. The only thing really that would do that is a second wave, perhaps in winter. But yeah, we can't do anything about that now. So yeah, no. we're just cracking on.
Yeah, I think that's what you can do. And like I say, I've been talking to a few people about, you know, next year, and even then you sort of saying everything. When you talk about anything next year, even then you kind of put in a sort of disclaimer on it. You say, you know, saying subject to change at any time. You know, you'd like to think, like you say, February, that's still 8-9 months away, but you know, we didn't 6-7 months ago. We never anticipated this happening, so you just don't know, do you? So
that's it.
So obviously,
that's life, I suppose, isn't it? For a lot of people, you don't know what's going to come, and things can come along that just change things. It's just that this has happened on a massive scale to everyone at one time.
That's it. Weird. Yeah, and it's very weird because I think if you look at some of the when you start looking at the experts and past, there's been a lot of people predicting something like this, but obviously it wasn't. It still came as something that I guess we're just not expecting this day and age. We can't. I think we can't. I guess we get comfortable with this idea that we're adapting to situations, and we've obviously had things in the past, swine flu and bird flu and things like that, where although they had an impact, it was never like this. This sort of
No, I
global
mean
shutdown was, I think,
it's obviously exposed the kind of fragility of a lot of our systems, and it really highlighted a lot of the inequalities as well that exist in the way that things are here, the way our system works. And there was definitely a level of complacency about how fragile that could be, and what could come along and just upset it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And so talking about, obviously, the castle itself was already closed, and was never going to open this year anyway, which I guess in a way, I guess has somewhat mitigated the impact it might have had, because obviously the lack of visitors, etc., would already have been accounted for and costed for. So in terms of that, I guess that's somewhat of, because had the castle been open, I guess it could have been far more serious in terms of the impact it would have had.
Definitely, you're seeing that with organisations that have been open throughout and are really struggling, or have been operational anyway and then had to shut down, and they're really struggling. And it's only been this week that they've received any kind of sign of government assistance with the 1.5 billion pound injection into the arts sector. But we'll see what happens with that, and how that can be helpful to those organisations. Most of the city are in that situation. We're fortunate in that we have, obviously, as you say, planned for this period of closure, the funding to pay for the project. The regeneration project was already locked in, and again, I feel really lucky to be kind of secured in a role for the next, it's just over a year now. I've still got left on my contract, an 18-month contract I'm on. So to have that locked in by funding and secured, I feel lucky. And then on a bigger scale for the project, it doesn't affect it in that way. But we are looking ahead to what the realities will be once we do open in February. And if this situation is still going, if social distancing is still in place, if the number of foreign tourists to the city are down or non-existent, then those things have an impact on how many people we bring onto the site, how much revenue we can generate, and then how much goes into all of the projects and the work on site that we do.
Yeah, of course. And there's obviously, as we know, there's going to be a massive, probably generational economic knock-on from this. And that's obviously going to impact how people go out and spend their money and spend their days, which again could have an impact, because if people are still, there's going to be people that are still anxious, depending on where we are then. People are still going to be anxious about gathering in large groups, but also, it's a lot of people are going to still be anxious about the situation economically, which again is going to have a big impact on entertainment and tourism sectors. So
we've got to respond to that. We have to respond to that with assistance. Really, we need to look at our role as an arts and heritage organisation in the recovery from this, both economically and in terms of health and well-being. The arts can play a massive role in people's mental health and well-being, and it's something that we're going to definitely focus on. We've got really good outdoor spaces as well, which come with a number of health benefits, mentally and physically, the use of which those. But also, looking at the economic side of things, if people are struggling in real difficulty financially, they're not going to want to come and spend money at a museum, are they? It's not going to be on everybody's priority list. And we have to respond to that. There are already plans for us, even though it is going to be a ticketed thing. The price hasn't been decided yet, but even despite that, we're planning on doing a lot with lower income families for reductions and free tickets for certain groups as well. So I think we have to look closely at the situation. We have to see how it evolves and we have to respond accordingly to that, so that people aren't left out, and that we are inclusive, and that people from lower income families or areas of the city where there is more deprivation and more of an effect really is felt financially from this, in those areas we aren't leaving those people behind and saying, oh, right, well, you can't afford to come, therefore you're not in. There has to be a response to that from us.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's brilliant that that's something that's being looked at. And I think, and often what goes on, we see a lot, obviously, you know, a lot of us have been lucky, particularly when it was nice, so that despite the lockdown, we've still been able to, go out in gardens, local areas for walks and things. But there are a lot of people that are living in places where there isn't a garden, and things like that. High-rise blocks and places like that are going to need these opportunities to try and get out for their their mental health as much as anything. And as you say, one of the things the castle has is a brilliant open area to walk around and things like that, and just the whole area around it. Whether you've got the statue, all that, and the grounds around it. And I think making it accessible for people to come is going to be key, because obviously there's a lot of people, particularly in the inner city areas, that don't have the big gardens that I think a lot of people maybe take for granted during this period.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we've got the grounds which are part of the ticketed offer, but then there is those walls, the outside walls that you're talking about that run along Castle Road near the statue, and we're planning on some exciting stuff for those walls, looking at projections and displays along there. We've also got the Waterworks building at the bottom of Castle Road and Castle Boulevard, and Brewhouse Yard. So there are plans being developed for that. But there's the outdoor space there by the Brewhouse Yard as well, which we're hoping to use for events and all kinds of different things. So we're constantly trying to think of different scenarios and respond to the latest information that we have, really, and think about how we can adapt our spaces and adapt our projects to best suit the needs that arise during the changes to COVID.
Yeah, excellent. So moving on from that, obviously, as we say, you've been able to keep working during this period, and I was having a look at the blog that you've got on the website, which is nottinghamcastletrust.org, and I've seen a few of the things you've been doing there. Like you've got a thing up with information on the sort of key members of the Robin Hood and the gang, which I thought was quite interesting. Little sort of, I guess, biographies, maybe, kind of thing, telling you the key points of that, which I thought was quite interesting. And you got a few other things. One of the things I saw, you've got the new thing about the grads. The grads for Knots thing, which I think is a recent thing, and the voices of today. As well as that. So what's been the sort of idea behind the kind of activities you've been trying to get out there, that people can engage in during this period?
Yeah, that's been one of the things that we've obviously had to kind of adapt to, how we engage our audiences and how we get things out to people while they're locked down. And so early on in the lockdown period, we were looking at how we kind of put stuff up on our website, how we blog it, how we put social media out that invites people to take part in activities. My colleague Gareth, who is the learning officer, he's brilliant. He's come up with all of these learning activities that are on the blog that you just mentioned. And we started off putting them all on there, and then we didn't want to exclude anybody, obviously, and there are lots of people out there who don't necessarily have access to the things that we do digitally. They don't have Wi-Fi, perhaps, or even the technology to access things. So we came to the realization that we need to just be giving physical things out as well. So we started working on packs, activity packs. We joined up a few times with some different people, different organizations, partners in communities who helped to put packs together and to distribute them. And so we've sent out, just in the last week, I've sent 150 activity packs for the summer holidays to Bulwell Academy. We did a similar thing to that a week ago, but for a community group that work with the Roma community in Hyson Green, called Idea Rum. And for that, we did 5 activities. Some of them were adapted from those activities you just mentioned that were online. And they were adapted so that we could just print them off, make a nice pack together and print them off. And so that one was translated into Romanian and then taken out. And prior to that, the biggest kind of lockdown activity that we've done and taken out to people was the distribution of the Nottingham Catchfly project, which my colleague, the volunteer manager Pippa, was leading on, and we worked on that together. And yeah, for that we've got this really interesting story with the Nottingham Catchfly plant, which is a really beautiful flower, a white flower that grows. Well, it used to grow, in the grounds of Nottingham Castle, and for 100 years, just over 100 years, it hasn't been there. And we don't really know the origins of how it got to the castle site, but one of the theories is that in the construction of the ducal mansion, a couple of 100 years prior to when it stopped growing, that was brought over from Derbyshire in the rock that was quarried from there. So somehow it arrived here, and it grew up around the castle grounds, and yeah, it became known as Nottingham Catchfly, which is just a version of the wider Catchfly family. And yeah, it isn't around anymore. So we wanted to bring it back, and the idea was that we would do a call out for people who were interested in getting some seeds. We found a distributor that could bring us some seeds for it. We would give them instructions. We would send it out to people, tell them how to grow it, and included in the pack was a little peat-free pellet that they could kind of put the seeds in and then grow it from there. And then we wanted them to get it up to a good size, show us photos, send us things in of the progress of it. And then eventually the plan is for them to bring it back to the castle for a big replanting ceremony. And so the initial call out for that, which was I think only 150, went in about 24 hours. And we thought, right, we need to get this out even further. So we managed to get more seeds from the distributor, and we ended up doing nearly 1,000 out to 1,000 households, 1,000 packs, that is, out all over the city. And we worked with distributors who were community organisations such as Renewal Trust, Play and Youth, and they got it out to all kinds of places all over the city. And they were already doing packs, so a lot of organisations were starting to move that way and starting to do physical things where they literally deliver it to their doorsteps. And so that was what we did with that. We kind of just provided it for those organisations to put into their bags that they delivered, and it was a great way of getting it out. So we're really, we're hoping that a lot of people will come back with their Nottingham Catchflies and come back for the replanting ceremony, and we'll make the grounds look really nice. Yeah.
Brilliant, excellent. I think it's great, and giving people those kind of projects at this time as well, I think is so important, because a lot of people can in a way can be at sort of a loss at the moment, as I said earlier, particularly with the open-endedness of this. And I think having projects and things you can focus on can be really, really helpful. At a time when for some people days are almost merging into just like one long continuous blob. It's nice to have things you can concentrate on, where you can say, right, I need to do this on this day, and I need to do, being able to make targets and goals and things like that. So having those kind of opportunities, I think is.
Well, we tried. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, we to follow on from that, we were trying to do like a variety of different things, try and mix it up quite a lot. So some of it was art based, some of it was political, some of it looked at the idea of kind of local identity and Nottingham being a rebel city, and the history of that and what it means today. But having something to do every day and to see as a work in progress was more of the idea with the catchfly, with Nottingham catchfly, because it's something that you have to kind of tend to and nurture and develop over a period of time. So that was a well-received one, definitely. Yeah.
Excellent. Obviously, as you say, the plan at the moment is the castle to reopen in February, and at the moment it's difficult to know how or what that will entail. But what can you sort of tell us about the plans in place for the castle? You know, for the kind of ideas that are being worked on. Because obviously the castle.
Yeah, it's going to be big. It's going to knock everyone's socks off. To be honest, like I'm really passionate about it. I can't believe the scale of it, the ambition of it, and it's not anything against what was previously there. It's not to knock the role of the castle prior to this regeneration. It's always been an important part of Nottingham's cultural landscape, but this is going to be something that's never been seen before. It's the money, the plans, the scale of external projects as well through community work and learning. And I really believe that even despite the setbacks that we might have with COVID, that this is going to change the landscape. It's going to really put Nottingham more on the map as well, regionally and nationally. And it's really exciting. There's if you want to know about the actual content within, everything's gone out. So everything was taken out in a big decant of all the objects that were on display. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's into the thousands as to how many went out, and something like 500 or 600 are going back in, from what I understand. So that means that there's going to be a lot of support from audio and visual stuff, interactive and hands-on exhibits and things that you can get involved with physically. We'll have interactive games like bow and arrow, target shooting, and quarterstaff fighting, as well as tabletop games that people can stand over and kind of like video games, but they can manipulate with a joystick. And then there'll be other stuff like how to build pots, and you can use your hands to do that in the craft and making section of the museum. There'll be a dedicated gallery at the bottom where there used to be this old car park and a nice kind of tunnel that led up to it. That's going to have the feel of a kind of secret entry into the castle. And so that gallery at the bottom is going to be our Robin Hood and medieval gallery, with learning rooms around the sides of it, and that's going to be one of our most attractive spaces, I think, and schools and young people are really going to like that. And then we've got a new dedicated Rebellion gallery as well, and that again is part of the whole emphasis on Nottingham being the rebel city, having a proud history of rebellion, and looking at historic episodes in there, such as the Chartists, the Luddites, the 1831 Reform Bill riots, where the castle itself was burned to the ground by a mob, and looking at all of the episodes in our history and how that relates now to a continued rebelliousness that we have in Nottingham, which I'm certainly proud of, and I know that everyone on the project is, and it's something that we think could be made more of in the city. So yeah, that's going to be at the forefront, and for the first year, our theme for work is rebellion. So we're going to kind of try to fit in a bit of rebellion into everything we do, not just the Rebellion gallery, which is quite fun. Yeah,
I think that's something. It does feel like that's something that has become more of a focus in the city in the last few years. The sort of rebelliousness of Nottingham. We've seen, like, I think, down near the station, there was the big rebel writers sort of mural or posters and things like that. And obviously, Left Line, for example, they've been running during the lockdown. They've been running a regular Rebel Nottingham sort of feature, talking about some of the rebels.
That's with us. Yeah,
is that with you? Okay.
Yeah, so that's as part of the Voices of Today project, which is a film that I'm going to be working on this year with Left Line, to tell really the story of Nottingham's rebelliousness, with a particular focus on more contemporary examples. But yeah, during the lockdown, we decided that what we would do is send out lots of remote activities online and attach them to a series of articles about famous rebels from Nottingham who have a connection to Nottingham. And so we've seen some really good ones so far, the likes of Brian Clough. D.H. Lawrence is coming up, I believe. Obviously, talk about the rebel writers. Alan Stillitoe has already been done as well. And then, yeah, just a wide range of rebels from all kinds of backgrounds as well. And yeah, we just wanted to celebrate it a bit more, but also put the activities onto it to build appetite with the population of the city for this film that we're going to be doing as well.
Excellent, brilliant. And that's been quite interesting, because I think it also shows the scope of what being a rebel can cover. And I think there was one, it might have been today or in the last couple of days, where I think it was a human rights lawyer or activist that was in a recent one. So it's showing the sort of scope, and the there's so many areas you can rebel in.
So yeah, there's all kinds. Yeah, we've got activists, LGBTQ plus activists, racial equality champions. We've got everything. Yeah, like you say, human rights lawyer, football manager, every kind of walk of life, really. And that's the thing, is that people's ideas and definitions of what a rebel is change, and they are different. To one person, it might be someone who very, very visibly and physically stands up to something oppressive and fights against it. To somebody else, it might be a rebellion in the mind, where their mere existence is an act of rebellion, maybe because they're from a minority group in a very different world, and they exist and succeed in that world, and their work every day of their existence is an act of rebellion. So yeah, there are multiple definitions of it, and we didn't want to say it was only one thing. So yeah, we're trying to broaden it as much as possible. But yeah, I do think that Nottingham is a hotbed for it, and yeah, our histories and our narratives are all the better for it, really.
Yeah, and it feels like the last few years things have changed, but it does feel like we've not always been the best at celebrating our history. Obviously Robin Hood has generally been for what Nottingham is known. Perhaps with Brian Clough as well, and obviously the Forest team of the late 70s, early 80s. But even then, you see a lot of people talking about how we don't make enough of Robin Hood in the city these days. I know I remember when I was a kid, I remember the tales of Robin Hood, places like that with the really weird sort of ride thing that went round in there. But it's it's often said that
it's true. I came here as well when I was a kid. I grew up in London, but like my family's from Mansfield, so I was actually born in Mansfield. And I came here as a kid to visit family and went to the Tales of Robin Hood and visited the castle as well. And that inspired me to kind of get into history in the first place, which has come full circle to me working here. But it's true that, yeah, there hasn't really been that much, apart from everything being named after Robin Hood or people from that story. There hasn't been much real advantage taken on that story. I can't agree with you on Forest not being kind of taken seriously or made the most of.
So, no, I wasn't.
Never stopped talking about that.
Sorry, when I was talking about Forest, I meant it's, along with Robin Hood, it's what the city's best known for.
Sure.
Not that it wasn't acknowledged enough. I was saying it was, if there's two things that
they definitely acknowledge it.
Yeah. I know. Believe me.
Are you a Forest fan?
No, I'm not.
No. Oh, are you? Okay.
Yes,
Right.
and I'm aware that you're Mansfield, so
I am. Yeah, I'm a
we'll
Mansfield fan.
see.
Yeah,
You're in a
not many
better
of us.
time of it than us at the minute. I think so.
Well, yeah. It's. I mean, obviously for football, it's a bit strange as well.
Yes, yeah,
Having to adapt and see what's what. But Mansfield are in a fortunate position in that they've got owners who do have the club's best interests at heart and are willing to put in the money for infrastructure, training ground, youth system, and to buy players and to get good players in. And it hasn't really. They haven't had the success I don't think that they deserve yet. In a few near misses of going up to League One, but yeah, they're pushing again for it. They've made a few signings already in the lockdown period. But yeah, hopefully Notts will be back. They've got their playoff date confirmed now. Hopefully they'll be back for a derby, which would be great.
I mean, it's been very weird, like you said, with the football, and I'm sure you've, like me, you're massively missing it.
Yeah.
But it's very strange. I mean, I've been watching a bit of it on TV, but it's the whole, we've got the playoffs coming, and it's almost like, I was getting excited about the chances. It was starting to look like chances to go to Wembley this year, because obviously Notts, as well as they look like they're going to get in the playoffs, whatever happened, but then they're also in the semi-finals in the FA Trophy. I mean, and I've been to Wembley to see them since the 90s, so it was pre the new Wembley. Finally, the opportunity looks like it's coming, and even if they do, we're not actually going to get to go. So
they go twice in 1 year, and you don't get to go.
That'll be it then. They'll know. They'll probably never go again for another 2 decades or something. But obviously, it's I laugh about that. But obviously, football is not high on the list of the priorities. But it's strange and it's weird. We're still talking about what might happen this season, despite the fact we're in July. And I mean, I don't even know when are we looking. When we're going to be looking at the next season starting or anything like that. We'd all normally be getting.
I do think though that. I do think there is something to be said though for. I know it's not. If we're talking about literally the big things that matter and life and death and health and jobs and economic security, then sure, yeah, we can say that for many people, football is like a luxury. But for a lot of people, especially at smaller clubs, at clubs like Notts or Mansfield, there's a community built around that.
Yeah.
And there are jobs at stake and livelihoods at stake through this period. And for a lot of people, especially people living alone in isolation who have felt this situation much worse than many, or people suffering from mental health issues, and people who depend on that community, this has been a really hard time for them. So I really hope it comes back for those reasons. And to be honest, I don't go to football for the quality of it, obviously, being a Mansfield fan. I don't go to it for anything else really than the sense of community that I get from it. And I have a strong attachment to that side of my heritage. My dad's family are from the Mansfield area. We're a coal mining family, and I've been going there to watch the Stags at Field Mill since I was 5 years old. So this year was my 30th anniversary of being a Stags fan, and I was going with my granddad when he was alive and my dad, who I still go with, and I see people who recognised me from the 90s and will say, "Oh, I remember you when you were this high," and it's a community. Yeah.
I mean,
it means a lot to a lot of people.
Like I said, there's, being a lower league football fan, there's probably more in terms of on the pitch. There's probably more lows than highs, but there's something special in there about that post-mortem after the match, where when all you can all sit around and point out every single thing they did wrong, or how the referee has once again screwed you over, and etc. But
what Alan Hardy's doing with his Twitter account.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm quite relieved that I might sound bad, but I'm quite relieved this didn't happen this time last year, because I'm not sure Notts would have come out of the other end of it. Fortunately, we appear to be in much safer hands now. obviously it's no football club expected this, and I think there's going to be a lot of problems in the lower and non-leagues. I mean, we've already seen. I'm sure you've seen Wigan, obviously.
Yeah,
And I think
there's a few clubs
that
are gonna struggle.
I know one knows, and that obviously the longer it goes on, and again, it's about getting people comfortable with going back out when it is back as well. And it's not just about opening the grounds; it's about people have got to feel that it's safe to go out at that point.
Yeah, there's talk about reduced capacities. Maybe they've tried to do that or they're going to try and do that in Germany. Maybe I think it is,
I think
or some country.
We've been doing that anyway at Notts.
I was going to say there's plenty of space if we want to spread out at Mansfield.
Yeah. One of my kids joked about why, if Notts got to Wembley, why we couldn't go anyway, because we could easily have 2 meters between us.
Yeah, have a block each.
Yeah. Obviously, you mentioned at the beginning how excited you were to take on this role, and obviously it's been very different to what you imagined. You've been, in some ways, been very different, but in many ways, you're still working on the same kind of project. And you also said, obviously, you've always had a passion for history, and so what was it that sort of drew you to the history? Is it something that was from as a kid? I mean, I know you mentioned coming to Nottingham and the Tales of Robin Hood and things like that. Is that where you've always seen yourself going?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. That was like the first point, really, where I don't know how old I was, maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I came with my granddad, the guy who worked in the pit near Mansfield, who I was just talking about, and took me to football. He took me to Nottingham Castle and to the Tales of Robin Hood, and following that, I had my little wooden bow and arrow and my felt green hat. And I just wanted to know more about medieval history in particular, and so I think I got one of those kind of kings and queens books or something like that kind of told me a bit more about the monarchs at the time. Learned a bit more about it, got more and more into it, and by the time I was at A levels, I was doing history A level, and then did history and politics at uni when I came back to Nottingham for the first time, which was 2002. Came back to do my undergrad degree, and it's always been a passion. Wherever I've gone on holiday, I've wanted to find the nearest local kind of historically interesting place. All the books I read are pretty much history related. It's just been my thing for forever, really. And so this is ideal for me. But it also marries up other interests of mine. So later, I mean, I would say no, not later necessarily. I grew up in East London in a very diverse community there, very mixed with people from every nationality you can imagine. But I've always had a strong connection through my upbringing to my African heritage as well. So my mum's family are from Kenya, and she's always done a lot to make sure that we are in touch with our Kenyan heritage and our family over there and in this country. And that's through food, music, art, everything. And so I felt a strong part of a wider African and Caribbean community down there in East London where I lived. And I didn't necessarily think that it was something, as a kid, you don't really know what can kind of lead to careers or not, but that never crossed my mind until much later that could be something that I could feed into a career like this. History seemed a lot more kind of tangible, or a lot more, much more of a kind of more traditional route into some kind of work. I didn't think that being part of a Black community and celebrating the cultures from that community would be something to lead into a career like this. And I did always think it would be something kind of educational. I worked in education in various forms for most of my adult life. But then it wasn't until I came to Nottingham, really, that I started working with communities here. And I worked at New Art Exchange in Hyson Green, an organisation whose whole existence, whole raison d'etre is about diversity and representing diverse arts and people from diverse backgrounds in those arts and those communities. So yeah, working there was a big influence on me, and then working in schools in the city, Genogly City Academy I worked at, and Rose Hill Special Needs School. So working in those areas and getting to know the communities of the people in those areas, St Anne's and Ice and Green, played a big part as well. And so yeah, it married up my passion really for community work, my much kind of more long-standing or defined passion for history, and then events as well. I'm going to be doing a lot of kind of putting on events, late night stuff, community events. I've put on music and arts events previously, so that kind of fed into that side of my interests as well.
Yeah.
And it's just networking as well, and knowing what's going on in the city and getting out and about. That's what I love, meeting interesting people as well. So yeah, it's all kind of led to this role, which for me seems like the perfect role. Yeah.
Well, and to be at that role at the forefront of like a new dawn for the castle as well. So you're part of this sort of whole new next stage in the castle and what it's going to be and how people are going to experience it, which you've said is obviously a lot of new things happening there. And it's obviously
exciting.
Yeah, and it's always been obviously a focal point. Anyone that I think it's growing up in Nottingham, remembers things like the pageant there, and the days. I used to love going down and all the little sort of huts that they used to have out where you could do the different medieval activities, the jousting, and even like just going up and being able to see across the entire city. From the top with the telescopes. I used to go up there and spot meadow laying and things like that. It's I think for me it's somewhere that brings back memories of days out with grandparents, especially with my grandma and things like that. So I think
definitely for me, as I said.
It's going to be really exciting to see what they do with it. I used to like going to the light night when they used to put projections up on the side as well. It's been very weird it not being open as well.
I don't know whether there's been another period where it's not been open like this, perhaps during the war. I don't know. But yeah, it's exciting to be involved in this kind of latest version, this latest incarnation really of the castle. It's been through a few. It's been a medieval one back from 1068, and then a ruin and a ducal palace, and then that got burnt down, and it was kind of the grounds were kind of open and overgrown, and people were just having their picnics and enjoying themselves. And then being turned in the mid 19th century into a museum, an art gallery, which it still is. But this is the first really, really big overhaul of that and renovation of that, and it's going to obviously have some resemblance to the themes and some of the things that came there before, and obviously the collections that we're using are largely the same, but they're being reimagined in much more exciting, much more visual, more tactile ways that I think are going to transform the opinion of it and really put it at the heart of the cultural sector in the city. Yeah.
Excellent.
So it's really cool to be involved.
And it obviously it is in the middle of the city as well, which often those kind of places aren't. But that is such a great focal point, and I think it's such a key part of not just Nottingham history but British history. And I know obviously everyone knows the story of Robin Hood, but then of course it was also where King Charles raised the standard.
There's a lot of key historical events that we perhaps don't know so much about, that don't get told so much. The number of key events that have happened there with medieval monarchs, King Richard laying siege to it. The young Edward III breaking in the middle of the night to capture his mum's lover, Roger Mortimer, and then getting him out, where he was eventually kind of extracted and taken to London to be executed, and things like that. There are some stories that you just wouldn't know unless it's kind of made a big deal of, and I don't know if that's always happened. So that's definitely going to happen. But I'm really interested in how we connect now with the modern city, and it is a museum of the people of Nottingham and of the city, and so it has to be told by the people of Nottingham and all of the people of Nottingham. So it has to include everybody, and so that's a big part of my job and my passion for this role and the project, is that we include all communities in this city in the telling of that story. And we say to people, look, this is a great resource, this is a great site, this is what we've got to work with, and how do you want to do it? How do you want to tell your story? Because if it's the people's story, it has to come from the people. It can't be other people saying this is what we think it is. It needs to come from them. Yeah. So that's what really excites me about my work.
Yeah, and you talked there about some of the work you've done prior to this role, and obviously working within communities and schools. And obviously, one of the key parts is getting the history and the story out, and drawing in people from all diverse communities that make up Nottingham. And obviously, I guess how that's obviously really important to you. You can tell talking to you, but also about engaging people that maybe have struggled to be drawn into this, because maybe they don't feel like it's their story, because obviously a lot of history that's taught is, let's be honest, a lot of the history that's told is whitewashed in this country, and there's often said that it's one of the ways to engage people is they want to see their stories in it. It's got to appeal to them. If they don't feel like it's their story, they can't engage with it in the same way.
Yeah, it's about building trust.
Yeah,
it's about, from our perspective, it's about building trust with the people of Nottingham. But yeah, just really saying that we can't purport to be a museum of Nottingham if we're not allowing the people of Nottingham to tell the story. So it's completely that's absolutely the perspective from me and from the organisation, is that we get out there and we make sure that people feel a sense of belonging at Nottingham Castle, and that they know that it's for them, it's their site. And that hasn't always been the case, and it hasn't always had the right kind of image. I mean, if you just look at the building, it's a great big stone structure that represents preservation of wealth and the elite, and even the dominating big walls that you can't scale unless you've got a siege machine or a ladder or something. So like it's a pretty obvious symbol of that elitism, and it's part of my job and our job now to make people see that there is another way to look at it, and that symbolism isn't relevant to the 21st century and to now, the 2020s, and it really is a new birth for the castle as a museum and as a cultural player, and that we definitely want people to be involved in the telling of that story. We have to.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think, like I said, the focusing on the rebels and rebelling against things, which feels very, very prescient at the moment in many ways. And it's something that I think that's something that will definitely appeal to people, particularly people like you say that this story maybe doesn't talk to in the same way. When you're sharing the story, those people that were in that, that back then it didn't feel a part of it, but said, well, I'm gonna do what I need to do, or I'm in my way when I rebel. I think that's going to appeal to a lot of people.
And I want people to be. That's it. I want people to look at what rebellion means to them through activism or protest or riot or whatever else it might be, or simply existing in a kind of foreign feeling world. And I want to look at some of the current organisations and events that make Nottingham continuously rebellious and different and ahead of the rest. And places like the Nottingham Refugee Forum, the Women's Centre, which is the largest women's centre in the country, looking at our LGBTQ community and Nottingham Pride and all of the activism that they do. So yeah, there's a lot of communities that can have a say in this, and that need to have a say. Yeah.
Excellent. I think, and I've often said Nottingham, definitely feels like a community that comes together in those ways. Like I say, it's a rebel city, and I think it still is. And hopefully it's going to keep being like that.
Yeah, I think it will, but it's also about us recognizing that things change and things evolve, and the nature of our rebelliousness, or the kind of shape that takes, will inevitably change. And the only way that we can represent that at the castle accurately, how that changes, that is if the people who are making those changes are involved in the work that we do. So yeah, we have to have the people and their true voice represented in the work that we do and shaping the work that we do, and actually have them working at the castle. So we want people from all of those communities working in the high up positions, influencing decisions, and trickling it down, really. So we can only be relevant and representative truly of what happens and the changes that happen in communities if we've got the very same people running our organisation.
Yeah, definitely, totally. Brilliant. Excellent. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your afternoon.
That's all right.
Obviously, like you say, at the moment, obviously, it's all hopefully February 2021 will still be the time. As you say, that's the target at the moment, as best that anyone can predict going forward.
I mean, as things stand, it is that date. We're on schedule in terms of the work that we're doing. The only thing that can throw that off is a kind of unforeseen act, like a second wave, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll all get delivered. It's all locked in. It's all planned. It's all being worked on. So it'll all get there eventually.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Yeah, I guess it's a case of how it's going to be, because as you say, I think there's a very good chance that even then we're still going to be under at least some kind of social distancing kind of restrictions. I think they could go on for quite a long time yet.
It's just another challenge. It's just another thing to overcome, which we will do. Yeah, we'll find a way around it, and it'll be fine, and everyone will get to see it. So yeah, I'm excited about everyone seeing it once it starts.
One of the things that often comes up is one thing you can say about these periods. Obviously, they're very rough periods. They're going to be very rough outcomes, but they do bring out a sort of an innovative and creative side to people, because you have to adapt in different ways, which we've seen with things like the Not Stopping Festival going virtual online, and I recently spoke to the Nottingham Refugee Week, and they'd moved their stuff online, and they'd done a similar thing in terms of sending packs out to people. Because I think one of the things that I quit talking about how amazing the stuff that you can do now online is, and it's offered opportunities that certainly wouldn't have been around, even the schooling side of it, that I wouldn't have been available when I was at school. But then there's and you mentioned earlier, there are still a lot of people that are cut off by that, that don't have that access. And I know, like you said, you've been doing packs, and I know the Refugee Week, they put together a lot of packs that they actually sent out. And it's because it's about, trying to get out to as many people as you can in as many different ways as you can, at a time when a lot of people are feeling very, like you said earlier, there's a lot of people at the moment that are feeling very isolated, particularly those in communities like refugee communities. And communities,
it's about doing both.
Yeah.
It's about getting stuff out physically and digitally, and Yeah, just responding again to the changes in how people want to receive things like that. It might be that people get bored pretty soon and don't want packs anymore, and that they just want to go out, and that if the social distancing rules allow, then we might be able to do kind of outdoor events where we kind of keep our distance from each other, but we have something in a park or in one of the castle's outdoor spaces, something like that. So yeah, it's a constant kind of learning process and a process of adapting.
But it's interesting because it is presenting challenges that otherwise wouldn't have been presented, but also offering opportunities for things that you may. I've spoke to people that have said that some of the things they've done, such as online, taking their support groups online and in Zoom and things like that, they've realised in those that there's actually an opportunity there to reach people that weren't being reached by just having the physical groups and get-togethers. So people that weren't, people maybe in communities that weren't comfortable coming out to events, or were too far away, or didn't have the access in terms of public transport. So there are things people have taken from this, I think, that will be taken forward even when we get out the other end of this in whatever way we
do. There'll be lessons learned about what people can and can't do from home in terms of work as well. But yeah, like you say, like somebody might have a phone and they might be able to download our stuff online, but then they might not have the bus fare to actually go in to do a meet somewhere. So in that case, the technology is helping. There might be a young person who's got a phone, but they can't get into travel. So yeah, we're trying to cover bases, really, trying to do both sides of things. I've got a project at the moment with City of Literature, UNESCO's Nottingham City of Literature, and it's a project led by them. We're assisting them with it, and it's called Letters of Solidarity. And for that one, we're trying to get people to look at an activity pack and take inspiration from that, and some workshops that we're putting online, and then to write as in letters that describe their feelings about the lockdown period and things like Black Lives Matter as well. And so for that, we're trying to send it out digitally as a downloadable pack, but also physically to send it to specifically targeted areas where we think people might need the physical one delivering.
Yeah, excellent. I think that's interesting. It's something I've been trying to do at home. We've been looking at like a document that's like almost like a time capsule type thing, because I think this is such an unusual, unprecedented happening, and one that hopefully won't happen again in any of our lifetimes. That I think this is something that's going to be talked about, looked back on for a long time. And I talk to my kids about it, and I say to them, this is going to be the thing you're sitting telling your grandkids about when you couldn't go to school for 6 months, which it just sounds 6 months ago sounds unimaginable that could possibly happen in 2020.
I don't think we started talking about that until we were a good month or two into the lockdown. When same thing with my kids, when I was saying they were kind of asking me about when they were going back and how long this was going to go on for. They're 5 and 6, so it's a bit harder for them to kind of get their head around it. But I was starting to think, you're probably not going back until September. I didn't say that to them, but that was back in April. I was thinking that.
I've actually been amazed by how well kids have handled this, actually. And like I say, I've got 3 kids, 7, 12 and 13. And the 7-year-old, I think it's been quite difficult for him because he's not, really. The older ones have still been able to keep in contact with their friends. They've got phones, and the 7-year-old doesn't have that same kind of ability to keep in touch with friends. And I think that's something that you constantly focus on the schooling and trying to get them doing as much as you can so they don't miss out on too much educationally to a degree. and keeping them engaged. But it's the community side, isn't it? It's the mixing and stuff like that. It's
my two are back at school. They went back. Not when was it? God, your perception of time is completely skewed by this as well. It's another thing. It was probably it was like a week, 2 ago. Yeah, they're on like a one on, one off, 1 week on, 1 week off basis. So yeah, they're off this week, but they're back next week, and then they're finished for summer. But they were really happy to go back.
Yeah, that's another thing that's throwing me out when I realised that, oh, wait a minute, we're actually only like 2 weeks away from what would be the summer holidays. It's like, because it doesn't seem relevant. You know, it's, that's like crept up on us, as you say. I guess before we know it, September will be here, and then it'll be like trying to remember what the actual process is for all that. You know, trying to remember what they actually need for school and things like that.
New uniform.
Yeah.
We've got a holiday planned in 2 weeks' time. Only staying in the country, but we've got a little holiday planned, and I'm praying that we don't get like a second lockdown or
like Leicester ever.
Yeah. Just holding out for that.
Fingers crossed for that. Yeah. Excellent. Cool. So before I go, for people that want to keep an eye on what's going on and keep on track, obviously I mentioned at the website, which is Nottingham Castles Trust.org.
Yep.
Which is, and I know that, as I say, there's a great blog on there that's kept up to date with various activities you've got going on. What about sort of social media wise? What are the best places for people if they want to keep an eye on, you know, what activities happening, but also on how things are, you know, when things start to be announced in terms of the launch and the castle reopening and things like that?
You'll be able to find that on our social media channels. That'll all get a big push as and when. But in the meantime, there's loads of content that we put up there. So we're doing stuff all the time. All the activities, the kind of things that I've said that we're doing. There's at Nottingham Castle on Facebook and at Nottingham NOTTM Castle on Twitter. I can't remember the Instagram. Sorry. Off the top of my head, but we have got an Instagram if you want to check that out. We're putting stuff out all the time. So all of the collaborative projects that we're doing with people like City of Literature, Left Lion, and whoever else, all of the community groups and schools and whatnot. All of the details of that work is available through our social media channels. And look out for 2021 for February when things will step up a bit more. And in the months just before that, there'll be a load of stuff that will build anticipation in the city. There'll be citywide celebrations and events in the spring as well. And so there's lots of exciting stuff planned for the next year, really. Yeah.
Excellent. I think there's a lot of us will be quite happy to see 2021.
Yeah.
One of the things I spoke to recently before the whole lockdown thing happened, I recorded an episode with Luderati.
Yeah.
Cafe, and I know they've done quite a bit of stuff with you. I know they were actually looking to do more stuff this year, but of course they had to shut, and they've like just reopened. But I think that was quite, and I think you mentioned earlier about gaming and things like that, and that's such a brilliant way, because I think that's something that's really engaging people at the moment, and I imagine during this period as well. I know we've done quite a lot of board gaming. I mean, we already did quite a bit anyway, but it's been, you know, it's been great, and I think
something that people are doing more of.
Yeah, and it's I know, but it's it definitely. And I know he talked about. I think they did a thing about the history of Robin Hood in board games, which I think they did with alongside you guys and things like that. So it's they've really great.
They've done a few different board games. But they're developing one at the moment for us, with us, around the Civil War.
Right.
So that's a Civil War board game. Nottingham was a key location during the English Civil War in the 17th century. So that's obviously Charles I raised his standard at the castle, and there were back and forths there, and the castle was held as a kind of parliamentarian stronghold, and there was a bit of a back and forth with Newark and a few other locations nearby. So it's it's one of our richest histories that we can tell at the castle. So developing that board game is going to be a really fun little activity that's ongoing now, but it's going to be a good one for people to kind of buy from the shop and take home. And my partner Emma's just said to me today that she wants to play a board game tonight, so there's definitely more of an appetite for it, because we never play board games. But I think people will like that.
Yeah, we've got one actually called Pandemic, which is seems an that one. But yeah, but it's one of those things, isn't it, that you can do, around the table with a family, and the board games have certainly come on since I was a kid. So, just saying thank you very much for speaking to me this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Cheers.
No problem, and I hope you get to go away on your holiday and have a good break. So
thank you.
Awesome.
And good luck to Notts County on their way back to the Football League.
Thank you. That's it. You never know. Maybe we'll be visiting Field Mill next year.
I'd absolutely love it if we could just go to any game. But Derby would be great. Yeah. Nice one.
Brilliant. Thank you. So a massive thank you there to Josh Osoro Pickering for speaking to us. Some exciting stuff coming on with the castle. It's fascinating hearing his plans for it, and we look forward to that. As I said, next week's guest is award-winning author Jasbinder Bilan, so be sure to tune in for that one. As ever, all episodes at ngdigital.podbean.com. Find us on facebook.com/ngdigital, at Twitter at ngdigitaluk. And as ever, please share the show. Please let us know what you think. Please give us a review. We love to hear from you. We're going to many more episodes planned, speaking to people. Take care of yourselves. Be careful. Things are opening up, but it's still important to be careful. Wear a mask. Follow social distancing. And we'll be back next week. Thank you.